in questions, and what we want to do is make sure we get some of buyers' most important questions answered for them. Are they looking at this as a primary home, a second home, or a rental income investment? And oftentimes we find buyers aren't really sure why we're asking that question. Is that something that makes a significant difference from a loan perspective?
Absolutely, Adam. When somebody's applying for a mortgage, one of the first questions we ask, of course, is what are you going to be using the property for? If they're going to be using it as a primary home, that means that they're going to be living in the home pretty much year round. And their interest rates can be a little bit different than if somebody was going to use that home for a second home or an investment property. And so the intent upon application has to be with a primary home, the borrower is physically going to live in the home as their primary residence, which means their address on their driver's license will match it, things like that.
Got it.
However,
And
second home is a property that somebody is not going to necessarily live in year round, but utilize for vacation purposes, or maybe, to spend some time, in Florida to escape the cold weather here in New Jersey. So a second home might have a different interest rate than a primary residence. It also might have a different down payment than a primary residence. A primary residence could actually be 100% financing if the borrower qualifies for the right program, whereas a second home might require a down payment of 10% or even more. Finally, an investment property is a property that the borrower intends to utilize for financial income. So if they're going to be, let's say, purchasing a home in Ocean City that they intend on renting out during the summertime, they're allowed to do that. But the down payment requirement and the interest rate could be significantly different than if they were going to live in the home year round or even use it as a second home or a vacation property.
so would it be fair to say, George, that if I were to rank these as far as flexibility, rates, fees, that your primary home is going to have the most flexibility, different programs available, and often the lowest rates?
Absolutely
Correct.
correct.
And a second home is going to be very close to that, but sometimes you might need to put a little bit more money down. You might have a slightly higher rate, but it should be very similar to a primary home, right?
Absolutely. Sure.
But the investment property is probably the one of the three here where you're going to have the least amount of flexibility, and your underwriters are probably going to see that as higher risk, and therefore you may have to put more money down and pay a higher rate.
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay, perfect. And that's why that question is so important up front, because when we start to find a property for a buyer, it's really important to know the answer to this question because, one, the loan products are going to be very different, and it may depend on the particular property as well. Correct?
Absolutely. And some buyers can't qualify for the property unless they're using it as an investment property because borrowers are actually allowed to use the income that an investment property is going to garner to them as a means of qualifying for a property. So a lot of people that feel like they might not be able to afford, especially shore property, should really talk to a lender because they would be pleasantly surprised to find out that they could.
Wow, that's terrific to know. So they could actually use the rental income from an investment property to help them qualify for the loan.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. I'm George Kemble here from Allied Mortgage. George, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are, what your company does, and what you represent?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today, Adam. As you said, I'm George Kemble. I'm a mortgage banker with Allied Mortgage Group. I've worked for Allied now going on 7 years, and I've been in the mortgage profession now for 23 years. So I'm not just somebody that came into the business recently or during an uptick in business. I've seen the ups and downs, the goods and bads of business, and currently we're in a fantastic market. So when you wake up every day and you do what I do, and you feel like you're making a difference in people's lives, it really is a good feeling. And every day I get to experience that.
Terrific. George, if somebody needs to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Well, the two best ways to get in touch with me is always first my cell phone. My cell phone number is area code 856-287-0760. And my email address is gkemble, that's GKEMBLE, at alliedmg.com. And people can feel free to call at any time. I work from 8 a.m. until 9 p.m. every single day. That includes weekends because
Fantastic.
a lot of people go out and look for homes on the weekends. And if they want to put in an offer, they should know that their mortgage person is standing by waiting to help them.